Okay, cool. And then a few other things that I just want to make sure everyone knows. We're going to do the first 45 minutes or so for the panel, and we have a list of questions that we'll go over. But if you have questions, feel free to type them in the chat, and we will get to them during the Q&A at the end of this. This is not affiliated with any company whatsoever. So while we do have representatives from some pretty incredible companies like InfoVista, Microsoft, they are not representing the companies, they are just representing themselves. And with that, please keep yourself muted. And at the end of this meeting, we do have a feedback form that'll take 2 minutes to fill out. If you're willing to do that, that would be super helpful for us at SWE so that we can plan better events in the future. And with all of that said, I'm stoked to get started. Thank you guys so much for being here today. And I will go ahead and let the panelists introduce themselves.
Great. I can go first, probably because I'm the youngest. But my name is Richa. I'm currently a senior at Cal Poly studying computer science. And if I were to talk about my general career trajectory, I would say that I've been really passionate about getting others involved in AI and machine learning in industry as well as on campus. I think that AI and ML is so influential because it kind of shapes how a lot of the decisions we make on, it shapes the decisions we make on a regular basis, you know, financial decisions, health decisions, almost everything sort of passes through an algorithm. And so I think it's really important that everyone understands a little bit about how those algorithms work. So I started my career interning at Project Jupyter, working on Jupyter notebooks, and I was able to meet a lot of people in the data science and machine learning industry. And it was really influential for me personally because Jupyter is an open source organization. So they don't actually sell any of their software. It's all licensed and free. So anyone can work on it. And then I moved on to interning at Apple Health Machine Learning, where I was able to test like the interpretability as well as robustness of machine learning models, just ensuring that they're not biased and they're working well for everyone. And that's what a majority of my research at school has also been in. Outside of that, I also started the Cal Poly AI Club, where we allow students to work on these really large scale projects, and we sort of open it up to anyone who's really interested. So last year we created a virtual assistant to answer questions about Cal Poly. So questions like, you know, when was Cal Poly founded? Who teaches this course? Things like that. Our chatbot Nimbus could answer it all. And then this year, to help students affected by the pandemic, we're constructing a mixed reality tour of Cal Poly's campus. And so that's been really exciting for me. It's really awesome, you know, getting people involved in AI and ML and learning more about the space. Yeah, that's a little bit about me. Thanks.
Irina, you want to go next?
Okay. So I'm Irina Cotanis, and I had an interesting trajectory, I would say, as well, close to the dawn of my career, not the beginning of my career, but anyhow, I started in the academia because I do have a doctorate in electrical engineering. I started in academia in the country I have been born. It's Romania, actually in Bucharest, the capital. And then due to my PhD, I did the work in Technische, it was called Technische Universität Darmstadt in Germany. After accomplishing my PhD, I got a job in the West. That was about 25 years ago. And actually it was a big opportunity because at that time, the wireless industry was booming. And my PhD was in wireless communications, a lot of signal processing. And my leadership actually started from the academia, when you actually work with students and you literally lead them in order for them to achieve what they would like to achieve, or you would like to help them to achieve. So it's working with that kind of leadership, and then moving in the US and starting in the industry. And I have been basically with the same company all the way, although we changed names because we have been in different transitions. But due to my background, I can say that my leadership is actually in technology. So understanding the technology, what happens, what is feasible, because you always are in the risk of running into buzzwords, and you really have to evaluate them and the impact on my company's products. But very interesting that what Richa said, that lately, I mean, the last couple of years, machine learning and AI is all over the place. And actually in the wireless communications, I would say that literally started only a couple of years ago. People, because when you apply machine learning and AI on wireless network data, is completely different than financial models and biological models or any other things. It's quite challenging, and actually it's the future. You guys, or you have started to have your 5G on your devices, you know that. But for operators to provide that to you, to the cost of the subscription to be decent for you and for them to make the money, they really need machine learning and AI. And actually even the technology itself is machine learning and AI based for the future. It's not really feasible like tomorrow, but this is the future. And also very interesting, also about machine learning and AI, I also represent my company in the standardization. So I did a lot of leadership in the standardization. It's about the International Telecommunication Union. And it's a group also related to wireless communication and network testing, performance management, and so on and so forth. And I have to proudly say that in that group, I have been the first one actually introducing the concept of machine learning in that group and to be applicable or for various things. So I'm happy that close to my end of my career, I really ran into machine learning and AI, which is quite interesting. Yeah. So about this, about that, that's it about me for now. Let's see.
So glad you're here. Oh my gosh, sounds like you have so much expertise to share. So I'm excited to hear more from you. Monica, would you go next?
Sure. Yeah, so I'm also coming from academia, although I have to say that, you know, my old urge to move forward and to go somewhere, it didn't start quite like that. It just started for fact that I'm Italian. I grew up in Italy, and in a sort of like rural part of it, very conservative. And I realized when I was in my high school that no matter what, I had to get the hell out. And I realized that education and then the leadership, I sort of tried to do my best. It was the best ticket. In fact, it was the only ticket I had to get the hell out of there. And so I just did everything I could. I got, you know, all this scholarship, I had a Fulbright, everything. I just basically did half of my undergrad outside of Italy. And then I went to the US for the Fulbright to do my PhD. I'm not an engineer, however. My first degree is in philosophy. My second one is in cognitive science. What I did a lot of AI, but at that point was very much an academic pursuit. I mean, we couldn't even do things. You did to, you know, there was no machine to really do a lot of the stuff that we currently can do. But that's kind of became relevant recently. But I did start, and I got in telecoms because I liked it. And although I didn't know anything about it. And to some extent, that was an advantage, because if you don't know something, you can just ask questions. And so, you know, in the whole thing, I just, you know, as I said, I moved forward because I wanted to get the hell away from something. And that's, for a lot of people, that's a very strong, you know, reason to move forward. So then I ended up in telecoms. And after working a couple of years, at Analysis, a consulting firm, I decided to go on my own. And the reason for that is because as a woman, I didn't feel like I had some issues. I left, there was no job, and I went on my own. So it wasn't really planned. But I really loved it because now I have kind of like what I consider a dream job, because I get paid to write and say what I think, and to travel to interesting places and meet incredible people. So, it's not really, it's just like, wow, I can't believe I'm doing this. And since we're talking about leadership, for me, what leadership is a way for me to articulate to some extent what I think about, what I think it's important. So it's a way to speak up and to do things in my own small way. And that has been really satisfactory, and I'm very happy about that. So that's all. And I'm based in Seattle, as you can see from the background.
Sunny Seattle. Micaela, you want to go?
Sure. So my name is Micaela Giuhat, and I come from Romania as well. So, that's a nice coincidence. I have a little bit of a different story because growing up, I'm from a family of engineers. Actually, my mom's family was in medical on my father's side, grandfather and father and all that. And as you know, Romania was a communist country. So when I was about 16, I decided that I can't live there. I want to travel. I want to see the world. I want to meet people. I want a whole bunch of things. And clearly that wasn't the place. So in a way, very close to Monica, I wanted to get away from there. And while I wanted to do philosophy, so that's another thing that is it's common. I decided that philosophy is not going to pay anything if I leave and go to another country, and figured I'll go and do electrical engineering. So it was easy. I was sort of a lazy student because I knew I'm going to leave anyway. So, we'll see, we'll figure it out. So in '85, I left with my husband, and we left for Israel. And in Israel, we had a little bit of a shock that first of all, we had to start looking for a job and go to interviews, and we didn't know anything about it. I mean, to the effect that we put our first name last and last name first. So, things like letters were coming back in a funny way. But I sort of managed to get into the telephone company there in Israel. So that's how I started sort of my telecom career. And after that, we decided with the Gulf War in '90, we decided that we had our first kid, and we said, let's go to Canada because it's nice in Canada. So we left for Canada, and in Canada, so pretty, I'm talking about 5 years after finishing my university, I ended up in a company that at that point was called Bell Northern Research. After that was Northern Telecom. It was the biggest it was like the Bell Labs in US. For any of you who know what I mean, but it was the sort of the research in telecom. And I started as well in standards. I went to ITU meetings in Geneva for many years. And I started to actually try to find out what I liked. And it was only after pretty good, amount of time, if I think about it, maybe 8 or 9 years after I started my career, when I decided that I really like product management. So growing up, I didn't know what product management meant, right? And I figured that I was very good at taking the technical details from engineering and explaining to customers or to lay people, I should say, and the other way around, taking all the information from customers as they actually, talking about their needs for certain products and bringing them to development. So I went and did a whole bunch of other technologies, and let me see, when the boom came, we moved to the States from Canada, and I started I went through like 4 startups. With each startup, I dreamt of a villa in, Tuscany. Didn't get it. But in the end, I learned quite a bit, and before joining Microsoft, where I am now, in the last 5 years, I was with a company called MetaSwitch, and we started it was mainly voice technology for telecom, but we started looking at 5G. So we started very strongly in 5G. Microsoft bought us last year. And what I'm doing now is something, again, very interesting, nothing to do with product management, which I've done for 30 years. It's sort of working with governments and explaining to governments and the different industry bodies what 5G means and how we all need to work together and how they have to write their policies and regulations in such a way that everybody wins. So that's about me.
And last but not least, we have Michelle, who has been one of my personal mentors for a few years. So yeah, tell us how you got to your career.
Oh, okay. So my name is Micaela Holtmann. I work at Microsoft. I was born in Seattle. I initially, when I went to university, wanted to be a teacher and made my way into technology by taking some classes that one of my friends recommended as an elective. He's like, hey, you like math? You might like this programming class. I think you should take it. And I kind of got hooked. And so I went into technology. I didn't really have a grand plan of it starting out that way, but here I am, and I still love it every single day. The roles I've taken, I've worked on everything from avionics flight controls as a programmer to various startups. When you would have some harebrained idea that it's like, oh, let's go try this. And then I made my way to Microsoft. At Microsoft, you can take many different paths, and some people take a path to be a super deep technical expert in one area, and that's what you'll specialize in over your career. But what I've done, and it was super deliberate because I love learning, I love people, and I love it. And so I went down the path of anything that was interesting to me, and I wanted to go learn at the company. If something new was starting up, or even if it was something existing that I didn't know how it worked, that just natural curiosity, I'm like, oh, I'm going to go work in that group. And my friends would be like, why are you going to that group? What do you know about that technology? And I'm like, oh, I know nothing. And I said, but I talked to them, and I talked to them about it, and I can learn all this on the job. And so I have felt over the last 21 years, and I shouldn't probably say this because it's being recorded, but I'm going to. It's like, I probably should have been paying them to work there, because every day I feel like I'm learning. And the value that I get out of learning, I feel I can turn around and give back to the company, to the business, or to other people that I meet and mentor. And it has been an amazing opportunity. One, I never thought. I thought I would be at Microsoft for 2 years and then off to the next thing. But I've just found a way. I've been so fulfilled there because there are so many different types of things to do within the company. It's not a one-trick pony. We don't just focus on one thing. It's everything, soup to nuts. It can be, you can go work in applied science and research. You can go work on big established products and services. And it's like, wow, you can work on consumer products like Xbox. And what I do today is I run our mixed reality experience studio. So we build experiences for HoloLens and for VR devices, and trying to figure out how do we look at problems that exist in the world where it's either being unfulfilled by current technologies, and how do we get there, and how do we enable this platform to open up just that next generation of computing. And so I feel very blessed to have had a friend who said, hey, go do this. I think you like math. I think you would like it. And then just being open to learning. And so that's my path. It's just that every day that I try to learn. And so who knows what'll happen next. I'm sure I'll work on something else strange in the future.
I love that, though. I mean, that means you really get a diverse range of experience, and that probably really helps when it comes to leading groups, because sometimes you're put into a position where you really don't know what you're talking about, but you still have to lead. So I guess that sort of brings us to our first question. Michelle, maybe you want to address this first, but what does leadership mean to you?
So I kind of subscribe to the servant leadership point of view. I think that as a leader, you can be either a formal leader as someone's like manager, because somebody has to do some of the administrivia and check the boxes. But I think anybody can be a leader. And what I try to do is be that spark that ignites other people's ideas, because if we bring them all together, we can go solve the problem. So I try to understand what problem we're solving and then provide, that spark so that we can get the right solutions. And I'm there just to share what I know and to help others contribute to solving the problem, because one person can't do it alone. And if you think you can, you're generally probably wrong.
And that goes. Does anyone else want to?
Yeah, I'll jump in because it's very interesting. I was thinking about leadership, and I think my leadership style, and I presume everybody's leadership style, changes as we get older and get smarter and start to appreciate much more what other people bring to the team. So, as a young manager, I think I was all about efficiency and making sure that I'm respected and I know all the technical stuff and all that, right? And I bring everybody with me on the pursuit of good products and good, I guess, economics for the company. As I grew, I think I went from that to being a very empathic leader, I should say, and mostly helping others, sort of what Michelle said about igniting, but also helping them in their careers and making sure that, there is no place that you need to get stuck, and whatever you want to do, I'm there to help. And to be honest, that was and still is the most rewarding part of being a leader, because many, many years after, I still get, emails or texts saying, you were one of the best managers and stuff like that, which it really fills your heart. So just stuff to think about.
Let me just say, my view is somewhat different because I have my own company. I don't have any employees, so I'm not leading anybody from, in terms of work directly. So for me, the leadership is more like a thought leadership type of thing. As an analyst, I have the opportunity to give my little contribution towards moving the technology in different directions. So for instance, I wrote the first analyst report on using Wi-Fi for public access, which now we all take for granted, but it wasn't really like that at the beginning. And I'm not going to go into the detail, but for me, it was important because it's a way. I never thought of it, or I never think about the things I do as leadership versus non-leadership or anything else. It's just a way that it's a way for me to articulate and to move forward things that I care about. So in this particular case, in wireless, it's the idea of expanding connectivity, getting everybody, not just the few of us, but everybody to be connected and things like that. And so use it to something that is important to me, to something that I like. So it's not like leadership is not a plan to do something. It's just a way to do what I care and like to do. So it's just part of what I do. It's not a plan. It's not something you try to do.
I would say that it's interesting. So for me, leadership it is not strictly correlated with product management or program management or whatever. For me, leadership is literally leadership in the technology itself. So first of all, actually, there are different facets to this. First of all, it's about yourself, motivation, and how to approach a specific problem to crack the problem. But then you cannot do that by yourself, as Michelle pointed out, and then you have to work with people around you. And then it's kind of this, in my case, always, they were my peers. So I wasn't really the manager. I always have, because for me was always a new technology coming. So something to solve a project, and then you need kind of a dynamic team. You want to try out things, so you need support from different teams to develop specific things that you can try out and verify and so on and so forth. So you interact a lot with these people, and it's very interesting how you listen to them, and you are also motivate them. It's kind of the enthusiasm that you are showing towards a specific thing because you love it, as Monica just said, actually changes people. So it happens that I work a lot with Swedish people. So, and I have worked since, I don't know, at least 20 years with them. And they are kind of cold persons. I mean, the team I'm working with is up north, Sweden, in a place called Skellefteå. It's literally in the middle of nowhere. So the small airport, it's kind of a bus almost flying to Stockholm. It's very interesting. I have been many times there and I really love the place, but they are kind of cold people. Swedes are not really warming or something. They are not Latin like me, but it's very interesting how through technology, because this is what it's our common thing, they open up. They became my friends. So it's not literally leadership per definition of the leadership. It's kind of a different leadership through which all of us actually grow. I grow in learning things and achieving things. They do the same. Yeah. So
I like that quote, leadership is in the technology itself, like leading through the technology, not just.
Yeah, you have to solve problems. I mean, this was my entire career was like, okay, look, self-organized networks are coming and we are a testing company. So there is no more testing because the self-organized networks will be there. We are going to die. Wait a minute. Then you scratch your head and say, okay, I understand the technology. And now I explain how in the world are you going to fix to our products to match this direction. So it's always challenging. It's always a new thing learning, and it's fascinating. It's really fascinating. Yeah.
For sure. So all of you guys, you're all speaking to different personal meanings of leadership, but I think one of the things, at least that I'm really hoping to get out of this panel, is how to enter a career and start building my leadership skills. Because we are at the beginning, we still have a few years left of college. So we can get involved with club leadership, but as we start to transition and begin our careers with a company, how do you start leading and taking on those roles, especially when you are an underdog? And I think, Richa, it'd be awesome if we could hear from you first, because you are sort of right in the middle of that transition yourself.
Yeah, so I can answer that. I would say, at least when it comes to my own development, because I'm sort of in this position where I've been moving between internships, between leading positions, and I'm going to start my first full-time job this summer. And I think one thing that really helped me was sort of within the organization I was in, figuring out not only ways that I could grow, but also that the organization could grow. So kind of figuring out what relevant and unique experiences I had that I could bring to my organization that, they might not necessarily have. And so I felt like that was my own very particular style of leadership. So just as an example, when I was interning for Project Jupiter, the Creative Jupiter Lab and Jupiter Notebooks, they were having, it was really complicated. They essentially had a lot of people who wanted to contribute to their open source repositories, but they needed, and I quickly realized that there were way too many people who wanted to contribute without having a very clear idea of what they wanted to contribute. So I thought, okay, I have some experience and interest in project management. Maybe I can apply that here. And so I actually created a proposal and I gave it to the co-founder and I said, hey, you need to sort of streamline people. You need to streamline the work that they're doing. And so that's kind of how I was able to bring in my own unique experience. Even at Apple, especially since I was fairly younger, most of my coworkers were PhDs. They had been in industry and academia for a really long time. I was in school and I was kind of learning the most recent technology and development, just because I feel like schools and institutions are like kind of a melting pot for, new software. And I was able to bring that to my team. And I actually attended a lot of open source sessions on behalf of my team to introduce them to new concepts. And I think that seniority doesn't necessarily define your leadership. And so I think even being, younger, less experienced, you can still find ways to contribute to your organization. And so just changing my mindset really helped me sort of grow into my career and grow into what I'm doing.
Love that.
I would like to add that seniority doesn't define leadership, and actually sort of flip it around. So it's not to say that if you don't have seniority, you're better off, but it's nothing to do about seniority. It's how much you care about something. You should just go and don't overthink it. Don't think you're an underdog or anything. You want to do it. It's something that matters to do it. For you to do it, go ahead and do it. This is what is going to make you successful. It's not to really think about, can I do it? Can I not do it? It's just, you're just wasting your time. But if it's something that matters to you, that you want to do, then you will succeed. You cannot succeed at doing something just because it's going to look good on your resume. Or maybe you will, but you're not going to have fun and it's not going to be good. To really succeed is to do something, to find what is in you that gives you the spark, makes you go forward. Then you will succeed, and then you'll be a good leader, no matter what the style is. Everybody has a different style, a different personality. That's okay. But find out what you want. And it's not obvious. I mean, I just, for a long time, I just didn't know what it, it's not always the most obvious thing to find out what is that you're going to enjoy and be good at. So you just need to try and work on that. But think about what's important to you first and foremost. And obviously what's useful to what you're trying to do, but it's important that you make yourself happy first.
That makes me think of the Venn diagram that's like 3 circles where it's like a job that makes money, a job that you love, and a job that you're good at. And if you can find that spot in the center, then you're really lucky.
There is a lot of overlap when you do that, because oftentimes the job that you find that you get hired is the one that you're good at, because otherwise you wouldn't get the job. So it's not necessarily, it is a Venn diagram, but there's a lot of overlap.
And don't be afraid of trial and error, because you're going to try things and then you're like, ooh, I thought I was going to like that, but I don't. So then just think of it as another tool in your toolbox, that it's like, okay, I tried this. I think I would like to do this, and that, plays into whatever strength. So don't be scared to try things.
But I also think we need to figure out, what are you asking actually? Are you asking, from what perspective are you asking this question about leadership? Because leadership, most people will say, obviously we all have different definitions of leadership, but usually leadership means you're sort of bringing somebody with you, whether it's a company, whether, in Monica's case, it's her own company. In Irina's case, it's the technical thing, but you're bringing something to somewhere. So you have to define whether it's bringing people, you're a people leader, you're a technical leader. What is it that you want? And that goes perhaps back to exactly the question that was asked before. Figure out what you want, but don't start with, I need to do certain things, because that's what I learned from my MBA classes. It's good, it's a good example, but just go with your heart, and I think it's going to be a better deal.
I think it's literally, you should not think first about the leadership. It's think about what you like to do, what you are motivated to do, and then do it because you believe in yourself. And in my case, imagine coming from a communist country 25 years ago, okay, with problems in front of me, nobody really telling me exactly what to do, because they'll say, okay, you should know the background, the experience, so on and so forth. So I took initiatives. That's something that I would really advise any young person. Trust yourself, take initiatives, and you will see that things are coming. And I tried that in my own company when I moved here in the US, but I tried exactly the same. It was not that I planned it. It was kind of the way I am. It was the same thing when I entered ITU. it was the same thing. So I went there because it was a problem that was affecting my company, myself indirectly. So I have to solve it. And you just tell them you get the leadership through knowledge, through your own beliefs, and it comes. And to be honest with you, an environment like ITU, it's like 95% men. I mean, yes, you would think that you should be scared. Forget about it. No, I mean, when it's about knowledge and you know what it is about, you just fight it. It should be like this. Yeah.
So transitioning a little bit into the whole the gender issues in the STEM world, I'm curious because, at least for me, every time that I've gone to an interview, my mom has told me, okay, put your hair back, don't show off that you're blonde, high necks, don't wear too much makeup. Be very—
And Julia, what did I tell you when you told me that? I was mortified. I was like, I'm like, what? And I said, dude, embrace yourself. Put the lipstick on. I wear my Hello Kitty shoes to work. Some days, I'll be in a dress. Other days I'll come in with a Gears of War t-shirt on and Chuck Taylors. Dude, embrace, you're just a person. Wear your makeup if you want to. If you don't. Because some days I don't want to either.
That's the nice thing about working in tech, right? You can show up wearing whatever you want. I think I saw someone, I saw someone on the Microsoft Connector bus wearing no shoes, and then one person was wearing those toe shoes. So fashion is. There are a lot of different libraries that people pull from for for what they decide to wear. But the point being, sometimes it's hard to incorporate your more feminine traits when stereotypically people have viewed leaders as people who embody more masculine traits. And so I'm curious, how do you guys incorporate femininity into your leadership styles? And is that even something that you think about?
I definitely do now. But so when I was in grad school, the advice that I got was similar to what your mom told you. So they basically said, you don't want people to look at you as a woman. So clearly you're a woman, but you just want to minimize. So you just go around with the Hillary Clinton pantsuit or whatever, So like, okay, and then because they'll say, if they see you as a woman, if you have the makeup or whatever, they will not take you seriously. And there is some truth to that, probably. And I did that. And I think it was, in retrospect, was the biggest mistake, because this is the hell with it. I can have or not have makeup. I just do whatever I want. As Michelle was saying, I don't feel like I actually threw away all my makeup for like over 10 years. I didn't wear any makeup at all because I didn't want to feel like I was objectified. And now I'm like, no, that's different. I use makeup not because I want to impress anybody, because it makes me happy, because I want to do, that's part of who I am. The way I dress is part of who I am, and I should not be in a position where I have to hide it. No, and that's just the dress, the dress codes. And I actually feel bad for men because they have much less freedom. They cannot use makeup, they cannot use skirts, but we can have a jacket. So I actually feel bad for men in that respect. But in terms of style and personality and femininity, and I'm not like the most feminine person anyway, but I think that what is important is actually to be as feminine as we can, because it's not something that we are successful despite being women. We bring, as women, diversity. Diversity is not something to tolerate. It's something that it's useful to everybody working, men, women, and whatever. And in fact, we should encourage men to be more diverse and more open as well. It's not just a woman thing. Men are just as stereotyped and pigeonholed as we are. So it affects genders in a different way, but it affects everybody, and that's really bad. So I think that diversity is something we should, go for, and I think that it's really important that we are aware of it and we use it to the advantage of everybody. And I can say this, I actually, you know, in like a few years ago, I realized that because of this, you know, all this kind of advice that I got, I was the biggest misogynist on earth. And I felt really embarrassed by that, because although I would be, you know, part of this women's groups and whatever, feminists at all, but I was not really supporting women because I was socialized as a man. I grew up knowing that in order for me to succeed, I had to behave like a man. So anytime I see a woman to be a little bit more feminine, I felt, oh my God, I can't believe that. I was not aware of it. But so we have to also, now I feel like I should have looked into myself more than pointing fingers at others at what they were doing or not doing, put fingers towards myself. And you know, that's to me is the real difference. We are women, so we're not, it's not because it's not despite being women. As women, we can bring a different contribution. It's an important one.
So I just want to add that the thought never crossed my mind until many, many, many years into my career. And again, both in Romania and Israel where I worked, it's more of a very equal. So I didn't feel any issue with being a woman there. However, when I went to Canada and I worked at BNR, I wanted to do my MBA because obviously I wanted to learn more. And I went to my manager at that point and he said, why do you want to have an MBA? Aren't you, you know, you have already you have 2 salaries. Why do you need an MBA? So that was my first sort of shock, and I had many more afterwards. But what I'm trying to say, I guess it's not about femininity or not. It's you have to be who you are. You have to assert yourself. And if femininity becomes, you perceive femininity as being an issue, don't. Work with it and embrace it and use it, because I think times have changed and we lean much more into each other these days than what we used to do, you know, many, many years ago.
I love that. We are running a little bit short on time, so I just want to make a quick announcement to everyone who is still here. If you have questions, please go ahead and throw them into the chat, and we'll prioritize those. Otherwise, we'll just continue with what we have planned. We've gotten some really good quotes from this. I think it's really interesting to think about how we sometimes can perpetrate the patriarchal environment and atmosphere almost more so than men, because we are just used to that stereotype. And I've definitely found that to be the case for me too. Sometimes I am more trusting of men than I am of women when it comes to things in the STEM world, and it's implicit, but it's 100% there. So Monica, thank you for raising that point and calling us out in that way. So moving on to a rather generic question that I think hopefully, you know, with our remaining time, we can grab a few little tidbits from each of our panelists here. What are the most important tips or takeaways that you want people to leave this meeting with, who basically are women who are interested in STEM leadership? What are the takeaways?
I would say if there's something that you're interested in learning or working on, use your voice and ask, because the worst thing that will happen is your manager or someone else say, oh, hey, I don't have that opportunity right now, but I'm glad I know that you want to do that. Don't sit back and wonder why someone else was picked and not you to work on something, because when you ask, it's pretty amazing how all of a sudden the doors actually open. They're like, oh, I didn't know you're interested in that. So
may I sort of follow up on this? And I think you're absolutely right. I was once at a meeting, and some woman was saying, you know, nobody asked me my opinion or whatever, and as if it was somebody else's fault that she couldn't speak. Well, we all can speak. We just raise our hand. You know, we don't have to. I really don't like the leaning in concept. We shouldn't feel like we need to lead in. We are at the table. Nobody has to give us the right to sit at the table. The table is there for us. And we should just not have to wait for other man, a woman, or anybody else to let us talk. We need to be there and raise our hand. And I think that that's kind of something that, especially at the beginning, it might feel a little bit more difficult, but feel like, say what you think, don't be, when you go to a meeting, speak up. And when you speak up about something you care. Don't speak up just to, to say something, but try to be a contributor, try to be active. Don't wait for other people to just call you in. You have to set your path. And I do see a lot of people that, they're kind of like, a little bit sort of feel behind. They feel like, they can really lean in. So when you go to a meeting or just sit in front row, make sure you're the first, well, not the first one, make sure you raise your hand, ask your questions, whatever. Don't be shy. You're not gonna know everything. It's fine. And that's actually why you want to ask, just go ahead with it.
Yeah, that was really well spoken. Oh, sorry. I kind of wanted to springboard off of what you said, Monica. The fact that, it's not just about like how almost technically good and how competitive you are. I would say up until your job, you're kind of encouraged, you're in these classes that are graded on a curve, you're interviewing against other people. It's a very competitive sort of environment. And I would say technical leadership is not necessarily about how technically competent you are, but it's about how well you can collaborate and empower others. And I've been in so many situations where I've basically empowered my mentees and people I really want to help, and they've gone on to do a project way better than I could have done it. And I think that's totally okay. And I don't think that makes me any less of a good leader. So I would say that's just something to watch out for, just helping others, teaching others, really being open and honest about your experiences is a really good hallmark of leadership.
And if I might add something, this is as women, we, and this is a little bit of a stereotype, but in my experience, it happens to be the case that women tend to be more generous and more open to collaborate. And this is where I think that we can really change the workplace for everybody. So it's not only for us, but it's for everybody around us as well.
I kind of, just to add this, that if you believe in yourself, you have to trust yourself and speak out, as you said. But there is also another thing: just because you are a woman, do not think about yourself, oh, I am a woman and I have to do this or whatever. Just be yourself and treat men equally, like being the same with you. So kind of being gender blind, and the reaction you will get is gender blind. It's amazing. I mean, I have seen that, and I didn't think before. I just realized afterwards, in different situations, if you just behave like them, then the reaction is they treat you equally. You don't have to show yourself either that you are special or something to be special treated. No. And I also believe that it's a kind of also the knowledge, that things that you are saying, that the arguments you are bringing to the table, then really make a difference as well.
I think we can debate a lot of these things that have been said here, but just to add to that, I would say, from my experience anyway, don't react immediately to anything. Take it in and try to understand where it's coming from, because in many times we take something immediately as we think about it, and the meaning can be completely different. Whether it's an email, in a meeting, in a discussion over the phone, just take your time and try to understand what is being said and what is being asked. And with that, you will find yourself very much appreciated, because you can actually communicate better, which leads to everything else that we talked about.
That's so true. Very true.
Communication is key. We got a question from the audience. Let's see. Layla says, how does embracing leadership help those who don't necessarily want to be in a leadership role?
Well, I guess it depends on what does it mean not to be in a leadership role. I mean, I guess, if it means just not having people that you oversee, that you're sort of like an independent person. Again, not everybody really wants to be out in the limelight, and that's fine. You should just figure out what is that is good for you, what is that you feel comfortable and you like doing, and go ahead. It's not, leadership is not really the only way to go. Different people have different interests, different personalities, different things they like to do, different ways of being a woman, a person, or a scientist, whatever. Just find out what you want to do. There's no one way to go there, I think.
Mhm.
I like that we don't need to put anyone into a box. We have another audience question, unless anyone wants to add to that. So Sruti, I'm sorry, I hope I say your name correctly, says, I know all of you have touched on how important different forms of diversity is in tech and how that helps solve the problem at hand. How do you encourage diversity of thought in your teams? And how do you bring out the unique qualities your team members bring to the team?
So I want to answer that, because I think I've done, this is part of why, I think part of being a good leader, and maybe, I think it's true. You always bring somebody that doesn't, that knows better than what you do, knows better than you certain things, right? So when you're creating a team, that it's very complementary in terms of knowledge and in terms of behavior and background and so on and so forth. But generally speaking, you start with that. You know that you know something, but you don't know everything. Therefore, you need to bring somebody that knows better a certain aspect of whatever the team is working on. And then clearly that will help with the diversity of thought, and that will also help with everything else. So,
and one of the things that I do to build off that is when I'm hiring people, I try to have different. I try to not hire in my likeness. I try to make sure I have a diverse set of people. Diverse meaning diverse ways of thinking, actually interviewing the same candidate so that we get a rounded view. I don't want a team of everybody that's the same. And I make it a point, and I actually just talked with my team about this week, that while technical excellence is just expected in the industry, but what I expect more so above that is collaborative environment where we make each other better. And part of teaching and making each other better is actually listening and acknowledging that there are different viewpoints. And so you have to model that and show that it's important. But you also have to be careful of not just hiring in your likeness, because it's natural to feel an affinity towards someone that feels like you. But it's pretty great when you hire somebody that's like your polar opposite and you're reaching that same answer together. It's really an amazing thing.
yeah.
One thing I could say about this is also, I think when you are in a team, don't be afraid to inject new ideas and new ways of thinking purposely. So I do this a lot for my machine learning development team, where you want to solve a problem and there are so many different approaches you can take. And naturally there's one approach that most people settle on and they think, okay, this is the obvious approach, it has the highest accuracy, things like that. But I encourage, but instead of just saying, let's just go the most obvious route, I actually do this thing where I have different people read papers about different algorithms that could solve the same problem, and we all have like this open discussion. And I think that's totally fine to play devil's advocate and purposefully bring, you know, counterintuitive or different ideas into your circle. And I would say, don't be afraid to do that. Don't be afraid to think that, you know, oh, you know, this is a really obvious problem. I shouldn't be, you know, asking all these different questions and bringing forth all these different ideas. But I think that's totally fine and should be encouraged.
Great point.
Well, hey guys, it is 6 o'clock, so I don't want to take anyone's too much of everyone's evening away, but some of these women have said it is okay if you guys want to contact them afterwards. So they've shared the information with me about what how best to contact them. And so if you're interested in doing that, stick around a little bit longer and I can help put you in touch. But thank you everyone so much for being here. Really appreciate it. If you guys could fill out that feedback form, I'll paste the link once more in the chat. That would be super helpful for us. And I will stick around a little bit longer and maybe some of our panelists will too if there's any remaining questions. But thank you guys so much for coming. Really appreciate it. And wow, like this was such an incredible conversation. These panelists are just, wow. I'm learning so much. I wrote down so many quotes from this today. So hopefully you guys all gained something from this as well.
Definitely enjoyed it very much and enjoying the company. And yes, we'll meet again somehow or another. I'm sure I'll follow up with many of you.
Yes, I want to learn Romanian and then be able to.
It's a must.
Not an easy language. Yeah, no, it was great. I hope it was helpful for all you guys.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah.
I learned so much today.
Have a nice evening, everybody.
Yes.
Thank you for having us.
Good night. Bye.
Bye, ladies. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. And then there were 5. Three. Who's CC? Hi, CC. Oh, you're muted.
Oh, I was like, Cece's vibing.
I'm gonna stop the recording.